motion to enter executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, Mr. Frick, Mr. Miller. Those in favor, signify by raising of the right hand. Thank you. We'll return from executive session no later than 6:30.
All right.
If you just show what I'm writing. Yeah. That's a good edge creation. Okay. That's one of y'all that we have been doing.
We'll entertain a motion to exit executive session.
So move.
Second. Thank you. We have a motion and a second, Mr. Miller, Ms. Harrison. No action was taken during the executive session. Any objection to exiting? We'll pause. Thank you. Welcome to the public session of the regularly called board meeting, Fairfield County School District, June 25th, 2013. Mr. Miller?
Everyone please stand for pledge of flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just a moment of silence, please. Thank you. And I ask you, please keep Mr. Bobby Cunningham in your prayers. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. We'll move to the approval of the agenda. Hearing no objection, we'll move forward with the consent approval. Thank you. And next, public comment.
I don't have any, Madam Chair.
Okay. No public comments. We'll move on to presentations, recognitions.
Mr. Malloy here. Okay, Mr. Malloy, come up front. Mr. Malloy is going to be presenting the board members with the most recent yearbook, and I've not even seen the yearbooks yet, so you all getting it fresh and hot off the press. But I'll let
bring you great news from Fairfield Middle School. We have a lot to share tonight. Home of Griffin Pride, where our motto is, whatever it takes, every student counts. First, we would like to share with you our activities and communications for our school year. We try to make this a tradition, making sure that you receive a yearbook from the middle school, and Mr. Green is getting his tonight as well. And we thank you for your support.
Thank you.
And just want to share with you our highlights for the year, and thank you for all of your support. The Education Accountability Act of 1998 requires the development of end-of-course examinations and gateway or benchmark courses. The program is called End-of-Course Examination Program. The examination, which counts 20% of the student's final grade in each gateway or benchmark course. At Fairfield Middle School, our students were administered the Algebra 1 and English 1 end-of-course examinations. I would like to recognize the following teachers. Mr. Heb New, who taught Algebra 1 in his absence, and I asked Ms. Leola Woodard to come forward, that she taught English 1 for having a 100% passage rate on Algebra 1. Smile for the camera.
I love pictures.
You couldn't tell.
Photogenic.
We would also like to recognize Ms. Aziz and Dr. Cheryl Witherspoon for their dedication and enduring support to ensure that our 7th grade Algebra 1 STEM Early College Academy students achieve this accomplishment as well. So all Algebra 1 students, 7th and 8th grade, had 100% passage rate. So we have we know she wants to take pictures.
Madam Chair, could the, teachers come up so we can shake their hands?
Sure. Ms. Woodard, you'll come and shake the board members' hands and want to congratulate you for all of your hard work and dedication.
Okay, see a student up there, ex-student?
Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Lord. She thought she ran the school. She was just a secretary. Yes.
Yes, I still do.
That's why sophomore English
Because he's the youngest one.
You're not going anywhere.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Should be in Fairfield County graduate.
And of course, with all of our students passing the Algebra 1 and English 1 end-of-course exam, we do have 3 students with us tonight who earned a perfect score, meaning they earned a 100 on the state Algebra 1 ELC exam. And I'd like to call them up as well as their family members because, of course, we could not have done this without their parent support. In the absence of Vernon Kennedy Jr., because he's at a camp this week, we're going to ask his mother, Mandina Kennedy, to come forward.
You roll with me taking out for one. You're ready to get a picture of
Go shake their hand. like to ask Alex Hall and his mother Sharon to come forward.
Alex got them too excited.
And Alex and Vernon are 8th graders. We had a 7th grader who earned a 100 as well. So we're gonna ask for Trace Swan, as well as his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Swan, to come forward to join us. I don't know if you remember Mr. Jordan saying he's gonna make 100 at the last time. He made it.
Yeah, y'all remember Tracy promised me a 100. That's what he did. He did deliver.
It's about the third meeting in a row.
You know it was.
Thank
You
y'all.
know it was. Keep up good work. Y'all keep pushing.
He wasn't yours. He wasn't yours, I know now. I said, you're my district, proud of you, very proud. Proud of y'all. And it takes y'all to bring him through, right?
Yep. As it does.
Let's wait until you're.
Next on the agenda, the approval of the minutes. Hearing no objection, we'll move on through consent approval.
Hold on a minute, Madam Chair, there was something, I can't spell it real quick. I didn't write it on here, so that's okay, you can go ahead, but, can I reserve the right to, is there something that's missing? Just maybe mention it, but I don't wanna hold up the approval, and then we can decide.
If you'll email it, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, okay,
Um,
that's fine.
Final Jeopardy's over, so, yeah. The minutes, unless I hear otherwise, will be approved by consent. Thank you, Mr. Daniel. Ms. Dotson, if you'll add the adjournment time as well to the end, that would be great. I know we can't go back to last time, but for this time, that would be great. Start doing that for us. Next, the superintendent's report.
Madam Chair, members of the board, it gives me great pleasure to recognize our 2013-2014 Teachers of the Year. And this is always a very special recognition because you're generally voted on by your peers. And there's no greater validation of your expertise as an educator than to be recognized by your peers as one of the, what I consider to be the top 1%, best of the best. And so I'd like to recognize our Teachers of the Years for 2013-2014 from the Fairfield Career Technology Center, Mr. Ernest Manning, from Fairfield Middle School, Ms. Cynthia George, from Fairfield Elementary School, Ms. Ashley Coleman Davis, from Fairfield Magnet School for Math and Science, Ms. Sarah Neely, from Fairfield Central High School, Ms. Jane Wilson, from Giga Elementary School, Mr. Kenneth Lawson, from McCoy Liston School of Technology, Ms. Pamela Roletter, and finally, from Kelly Miller Elementary School, Ms. Natasha Powers. And of course, they will be competing in the District Teacher of the Year competition. It will be stiff as always, and the winner will represent Fairfield County in the competition as we vie for the State Teacher of the Year. And we have a very competitive field. We're looking forward to the competition. So we could give them a round of applause. members of the board, I want to speak a little bit about our pending school uniform policies that will be occurring next school year. Last meeting, Dr. Martin, in addition to, I think, Ms. Woodard, and maybe the meeting before that, Ms. Bramlett presented proposals to go to a uniform policy on next school year. That would, in essence, complete all of our elementary schools where they would be in uniforms. As you know, McCoy Liston School of Technology currently has a uniform policy, as does the Magnet School for math and science. There has been some question as it relates to will this be a mandatory policy. My position is that it is impossible to have a uniform policy if it is not a mandatory policy. And Dr. Martin spoke about this on last meeting, and I think she was posed a question as to what will be the response if students come to school without a uniform. And we're still working through that at the individual sites, but probably what will occur is that through the churches and businesses, we would have received donations of many, many uniforms. And for those students who are experiencing some financial difficulties, we will provide them uniforms. But in terms of someone just electing not to conform to the policy, that is not going to be an option. If we're going to have a uniform policy, it is something that we're going to have to enforce. And where there are difficulties, be it financial, and we've already contacted our churches and our business partners to say provide support where those barriers exist. But students will be required to wear uniforms. So I just wanted to set the record straight there and give you our perspective as to why that needs to occur. Okay?
Madam Chair, what's your term?
He's gone.
Can he give us a ruling on the uniforms being mandatory? I support him 100%, but I don't support us spending a lot of time if legally we can't make them mandatory. Or have you, Mr. Green, already communicated with the?
I've not communicated with the attorneys, Ms. McDaniel, based on my experience, because we had uniform policy where I'm coming from, and they were mandatory. So that didn't necessarily mean that it was in accordance with the law. It was fine there, so my assumption is that it will be fine here. But what I will do is to speak to our attorney just to verify that there are no legal hurdles that we need to overcome there.
And this is something like you will.
I'll be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Next, I want to just recognize that we have some surveys on the school website as relates to the Career Center to give the public an opportunity to really weigh into to this very exciting venture. If you go to the website, I think it may be pretty close to the top. It gives you and all members of the community an opportunity to weigh in on programming for the upcoming year. It talks about your perspective on the new Career Center, just so we can get the public's input as we move forward. So I just want to bring that forward for your information and the public's information. Please take an opportunity to go to the district website and have your voices heard as it relates to our new proposed Career Center. Okay?
And Madam Chair, on that one, are the committee that was put together, are they still meeting, or?
I think they've met for the final time, Ms. McDaniel. They've met, I'm not quite sure how many times, but I think they've met for the final time.
The final meeting is next week.
The final meeting next week, okay. All right. So that one will be next week.
Are we gonna get some feedback from their meetings, from the committee?
I'll speak to the committee and see whether they have something they can give me. I haven't been attending all the meetings, Ms. McDaniel, so I'm not quite sure exactly what has been transpiring. I mean, I think they've been giving their input and feedback. Let me revise that. I did attend the first meeting. I did attend the second meeting. But I did attend at least one meeting. And it was a lot of conversation as it relates to what their thoughts were as it relates to programming. But I'll speak to see whether we can wrap up what was the consensus of the committee. Okay, yes, sir.
Next question.
Mm-hmm.
Madam Chair. Do you have any, our new, people in the audience, of course, new hires, or,
Yes, we do. Okay. Mr. Miller recognized some new faces there. So we'll deviate a little bit here from the agenda and ask if Mrs. Denise Sauer, who is our new Director of Human Resources, yeah, that's the new Director of Human Resources. She'll be sitting at the table very soon, Mr. Miller, now on the side. And then we have Dr. Robin Hardy, who's the new principal at Fairfield Middle School. Okay, and I think you already met Ms. Swilly, so you know Ms. Swilly from high school. So we're very excited. But yeah, Ms. Swilly, okay, Ms. Swilly, you please stand. Yeah. And Ms. Swilly is the new principal at Fairfield Central High School. Yeah.
Start issuing name tags.
We want you to know who's who. But we're very excited to have them on board. Yes, ma'am.
Back to the Career Center, do we have, every year, at least one time, the students, maybe even the middle school and the high school, that go, have a tour of the Career Center now, so they are familiar with what's available there?
Yes. They do, and this year, I'm not sure how, I think they did a little different this year, Ms. Hartman. I know they came over and spoke to all the students about all the programming and all the opportunities that existed. So I think they tried to change it a little bit this year. Instead of having the students go to the Career Center came to the school to really talk about all the opportunities that existed. And ironically, I had the opportunity to witness the welding teacher give his pitch for why students should pursue his program, that I had to be sitting in an English class doing an observation when he came in. So that is occurring, although we did it slightly different this year, where the Career Center came to the students instead of the students going to the Career Center this past year.
Because the only there is they can't actually see the equipment that's out there when they're not, when they're talking on it.
The next thing I move forward, Madam Chair. Last meeting I talked to you about making a proposal to increase the salaries of our school resource officers. I outlined then all of the reasons that I felt it would be a prudent decision. One of which is it allows us to potentially create some stability in that position and not put our resource officers in a position where they feel as if they need to leave in order to receive pay raises and increase their financial compensation. I'd like to propose that we raise the school resource officers' salaries from the $28,000 to $29,000 range, and it varies a little bit, to $32,130. This includes a 2% raise that the county plans to give all officers on next year. So that $32,130 includes a 2% raise also. After talking to the sheriff and the chief, they plan to put a couple of stipulations on receiving the $32,130. They want all resource officers to be SRO certified, and they want all resource officers to be DARE certified before they can receive the pay increase. But I'd like to present that as an action item.
One question,
Yes, sir.
you got that in the budget?
Let's get a motion.
Okay,
first.
fine.
Madam Chairman, we'll accept the recommendation coming from the superintendent on the school resource officers.
Thank you, Mr.
I
Daniels.
second it.
Okay, and second by Mr. Miller. Okay, now discussion. Go ahead.
Mr. Green, is that put in the budget, is that your salary?
But Ms. Miller, we have been creative, and we've found a way to squirrel a couple of dollars in there to put together enough money to meet that. So we found the money in the budget. We have a couple of different options. We've been very thrifty over the years, and so we have some latitude in the budget.
Thank you. Any further questions, discussion?
Yeah, they have a question. So Mr. Green, you've agreed with the sheriff on those stipulations, and are they gonna be part of the contract, that they're certified?
Yes, well, it's not part of the contract, Mr. McDaniel. What the sheriff office wants to do is to say before they receive the pay increase, that they be DARE certified and SRO certified. So in other words, if we had a new resource officer, he would start where the other resource officer started, say 28, 29. Once he or she was DARE certified and SRO certified, then their salary would move to 32,130. And I'm fine with that.
So the ones that we have now are both DARE and SRO?
I think all except maybe the new officer coming on board may not be DARE certified. So I think that our newest officer may be working towards DARE certification. But I don't quote me, I think that's the case.
But not at some point?
Yeah, eventually everybody will be.
Okay.
That will be, yeah.
With the incentive of the raise, I think that would make it happen a little bit faster. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor of the superintendent's recommendation, the pay increase for the SROs for the 13-14 school year, please signify by the raising of the right hand. No opposition, thank you. 6-0, Ms. Dodson.
The next thing we're very excited about, I talked in the last meeting about moving to a bring your own device policy, which I am very excited about the potential of increasing our student engagement. For years we have fought the battle of whether students should bring cell phones and bring iPads and laptops and what they would be doing with those items once they brought them. But we've kind of had a paradigm shift, and now we are embracing all of these items. And now we're trying to find ways to incorporate that technology into our instruction. So we're going from what I consider to be a very restrictive policy to a policy that embraces technology and finds ways to incorporate that into our instructional program. So in the board packet, you see first reading on board policy administrative rule IJNDB and IJNDB-R, acceptable use of technology, which includes a bring your own device policy. There will be a need to shore up our infrastructure so we could handle all of these wireless devices. That will probably be somewhere around $100,000 to shore up our infrastructure in order to accommodate all of the devices that we anticipate coming into our system. The majority of those funds will come from capital funds, since that will be a part of facility upgrades. There will be a few software licenses that will come from the technology fund. But I am also presenting that as an action item to move forward with the bring your own device policy.
That again is in the budget currently?
Let's get a motion and a second, then we'll ask the questions.
No, I'm sorry.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Miller has made the motion.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Hartman and Ms. Harrison seconded at the same time, I think. All right, now we'll open it for discussion or questions.
And to answer Ms. Hartman's question, Ms. Hartman, we do have capital funds that have been identified that is used for facility upgrades primarily. So we have some latitude in terms of what capital projects we pursue. So we have identified that as a priority. We think that is vitally important to doing a more robust job of increasing student engagement.
So what age would that go?
A very good question, Mr. Miller. Initially we talked about potentially going from grades 3 or 4 through 12, and ultimately I think we'll end up there. But we're only going to start with the middle school and the high school. So the bring your own device policy will only be in effect for 7th through 12th graders. 7th through 12th graders. But our ultimate goal is that we expand it down to the younger grades eventually.
Okay,
Yes, I had asked this before, we asked,
go on and turn your mic on, please.
when we're responsible for their devices if something happens to them.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. And that's a part of the devices, of the policies you look at it. It outlines that if parents allow children to bring those devices, the school would not be responsible for theft or loss. So
That's part of it, I missed that when I was reading.
that's also included
I
in the
didn't look
policy.
for it.
Yeah,
Okay.
Chair. So the firewalls that we currently have in place will prohibit them from going to sites that are not appropriate?
got pretty good systems in place, Ms. McDaniel. But I also tell you that no system is gonna be fail-safe. You know, kids are very resourceful and very smart, and will someone find a way to get around our filters? That they're possible. I'll tell you, we will do all that we can dream up to prevent that from happening. So we'll be putting, you know, every security measure in place that we know of to prevent it. You might think some of our geniuses out there find a way to get around it. That's very, very possible. And when we find that they find a way to get around it, then you know, like cat and mouse, we'll find a way to do something with it.
Now, do we have the software in place that identifies, is there some very good software that identifies when students broken and gone to those sites? So do we have that?
Well, and I don't want to speak, I'm not a technology expert. I think what we have are monitoring systems that tell when you have gone to a site, if we go and do a check after the fact. So in other words, I don't think we have anything that can alert us to the fact that you're going. Am I on base there?
But we do have a software in place that if a student logs into a computer or even an employee logs into a computer, the system can currently track the user, who's logged in currently into our system. But I think Ms. Barker will be the person who could discuss more in detail as it relates to the BYOD and the tracking of the individual user.
Technically, you're tracking the device though,
Correct.
so they don't have somebody else's password.
Right.
It should be that person, right?
You're exactly
What
right.
you're saying.
Right.
Except for there has been quite a few cases with, and students need to be cautioned with leaving their devices and they're logged in. And then someone else going to the device and then downloading something that they shouldn't be downloading. So they should be extremely cautious, and we need to make sure that we, I mean, it's a great idea, but it just calls for an increased heightened level of different kinds of security to not put our students at risk, while at the same time trying to do something great for them.
And I'll tell you something we found very interesting, Ms. McDaniel. You know, we've done quite a bit of research, and we found a school in Forsyth, Georgia, that is a kind of cutting edge as it relates to bringing on ICE policy. And they said that really what has happened since they've implemented this policy is thefts have gone down. Surprising. They said, you know, because before, kids would be a little more apt to maybe sit devices down and be a little more comfortable. Once they implemented this device, they began to be a little more vigilant about maintaining their devices at all times. So, you know, I guess time will tell, but we are hopeful that happens here also, and that students become even more vigilant about maintaining the security of their devices, and then we find that thefts and some of those things go down. But you can rest assured, we will be having a lot of conversation with parents and students about securing their devices. As a father of 3 daughters and my twins in the 7th grade, I can tell you, if this policy is in place, and my daughters, thanks to my wife, have iPhones. I didn't necessarily co-sign on that, but sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But they have iPhones, and this policy is approved. They don't understand, don't you ever let that iPhone out your pocketbook, your pocket, out your hand. Okay, under no circumstances. And I think that's the kind of conversation we will need to have with our children.
Okay, but I want on the record that we go overboard in making sure, because the policy will pass, I don't think that's a question. That we go overboard in making sure that, we state and then we reiterate to our students to make sure that every watchful eye is watching, because it's so easy, particularly, with the laws with them downloading stuff over the internet that they shouldn't, and ruin the rest of their lives, when we're trying to do something great for them, and we don't have the kind of security that we need to have in place.
We will do all we can, I can guarantee that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second to approve the first reading for the Board Technology Administrative Rule IJNDB and IJNDB-R, acceptable use of technology policy.
Making that motion.
We've already got a motion, that was the restatement of the motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by the raising of the right hand. Got 5 in favor, opposed, abstention. 501, Ms. Dotson. And we'll move on to curriculum and instruction.
Good evening, Board of Trustees, Mr. Green, our superintendent. For you, our first item is the homeschool application approval for a student to receive their education via homeschool that will be educated by their parent. This is a repeated request, and the request is, has been loaded in Board Docs. And if you have reviewed the request, you'll notice that this child does have some disabilities that will require him to be, the parents prefer to actually homeschool the child. And as I stated earlier, this is a repeated request that you have approved previously.
This is one student, right? Because
Yes.
it looked like it was just repeated twice on our board doc.
Let's get a motion and a
Madam Chair, I
second.
move that we,
Before we start talking, let's get a motion and a second.
that we accept the superintendent's recommendation regarding the homeschool application.
Thank you, Ms. McDaniel.
Second.
Second, Ms. Harper. Thank you. Any discussion or questions? Okay. There's been a motion and second to accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the homeschool application request in the board packet. All those in favor signify by the raising of the right hand. Looks like 6-0, Ms. Dotson.
The next item on the agenda is an out-of-state overnight field trip request. And the superintendent recommends that the board ratify the out-of-state overnight field trip request for Fairfield Central High School basketball team to Charlotte, North Carolina. And it took place previously on June the 14th through the 16th. And this was a request that was mistakenly left out of the initial submission to you all for approval. And so this is in fact a request to ratify the trip that has already taken place for Fairfield Central High School.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation regarding the ratification of the overnight out-of-state field trip.
Thank you, Ms. McDaniel.
Second.
Second, Ms. Hartman. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second to accept the superintendent's recommendation about the overnight field trip that has occurred in the past. All those in favor signify by raising of the right hand. Opposed? Abstention. 501, Ms. Dotson. All right. Operations and Finance.
Good evening, Board of Trustees and Superintendent. In your board packet, you have a facility usage request for a request of a waiver with the Salkehatchie Summer Service Group. And their group, they do community service regarding housing, construction for home projects in Fairfield County. And this has been waived by the board in the past.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation regarding the waiver of the fee for the facility usage by the Salkehatchie Group.
I second that, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel, Mr. Miller. Any questions or discussion?
Just a great, it's just, you know, they do great work.
Absolutely. We'd like to support that as usual. All those in favor signify by raising of the right hand. 6-0, Ms. Dotson.
In the board packets, second item, you have the superintendent's recommending the board approve the second and final reading of board policy DJ, procurement. The major changes in this policy are the construction section of the policy, which will give the district some flexibility on major construction projects going forward.
So move, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Frick has seconded. Any questions or discussion?
Madam Chair, the minority, not the minority, yeah, the minority and local vendor piece.
Daniel?
If you could answer.
Okay, I think there was some questions, not necessarily we didn't address minority, but local vendor piece. I am working with the attorneys right now, and there's some language that we're going to insert in our policy that is going to give us greater flexibility in terms of awarding contracts to local vendors. Now, currently as our procurement process states, we have to put quite a bit out for bid. The new language will give us some latitude where we'll be able to award some without going to bid. But we're still working on that piece of it. So that's not totally finished. We're still crafting that language. But probably by next meeting, Ms. McDaniel, that'll be an addition that I make to the policy change.
And let me qualify that when I mention minority, it's not just African American, it's any minority, female.
I understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
But in particular, our local people.
Yeah. And that's it. We are working on, we are crafting some language as relates to that. Yeah, we will work on that.
Thanks.
Okay, further questions or discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second to accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the board policy DJ procurement. All those in favor signify by raising of the right hand. Looks like 6-0, Ms. Dodson. Item number 3.
Item number 3 in your board packet, you have the third and final reading of the FY 13-14 budget in the amount of $34,358,564, and that's being submitted for board approval.
We have a motion or a second, motion first. Do that first. Motion to approve the proposed budget.
So moved.
Mr. Frick has made the motion. A second? Second. Thank you, Ms. Harrison. Now the time for the discussion and the questions.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll just briefly go through the presentation again. There are no major changes to the budget. The amount has not changed since the second reading. The increases for our local tax revenues, once again, we're looking at an increase of about $966,000 over the current budget, and that's really due not to a millage increase, but just due to increased revenues that we believe we'll receive from our tax base. We also have increased funding from our state funding, according to the budget that's being proposed in the legislature of about $250,000. And then in the other category, transfers from other funds of about $350,000. So we're looking at a total revenue increase of about $1.57 million over our current budget. The expenditures, once again, the total number has not changed at all. The majority of the change, we had one change from the last budget, not in the total, but in the category, our salaries and benefits, that is lower than it was in terms of the increase from the last budget. And that is because we have a position that we will not fill this year. We'll use those funds for some software licensing. And therefore, the purchase service amount increased more than it did by about $60,000 over the amount that we had budgeted for the second reading. But other than that, there were no changes. So our salaries and benefits, in essence, are increasing over the current budget by about $963,000 due to the salary increases for the step increases for teachers and non-teaching personnel. Also, we're estimating our health insurance will go up by about 5%, retirement by about 5% for the employer's cost, which leads us to the increase for salaries and benefits. Purchase services, the increase of $241,000 over this current budget is due to estimated increase in our property and casualty insurance, $75,000. As I mentioned earlier, about $60,000 in technology services and licensing, $40,000 for superintendent's contingency, and another $60,000 to help provide mental health services. The other categories remain the same as in the second reading of the budget. Decrease in supplies and materials, that's because we're estimating we'll have lower energy costs than we have in our current budget, and we'll have an increase estimated in next year's budget for other objects of about $56,000. That's due primarily to an increase in establishment of our pupil activity insurance, which we did not have in this current budget. And then finally, our transfers, which are transfers to other funds from the general fund, will increase by about $296,000, and those increases will go to the food service fund primarily. So in summary, our budget, the revenue we're looking at, once again, $34,358,564. There is no millage increase in the budget, so our current millage of 203.1 mils will still be the millage that we're requesting for next year's budget, and therefore that's the amount that we're requesting approval for this evening, $34,358,564. Sorry.
The superintendent contingency fund, what exactly is that?
Ms. Hartman, that is for the various initiatives that I'll be working on and developing all summer long. Like the STEM initiative, there's some other things that I'm working on. I'm currently working on the Year 13 nursing program, two Year 13 nursing programs. So these are some curriculum initiatives that I foresee happening next year. Just to give you some funds to really proceed with that.
Is there a reason they didn't go into the budget of the department that they were in versus being in the superintendent?
Say again.
Is there a reason they went? Sorry. Is there a reason that you put it in the superintendent's department versus the department in which the initiative will come out of?
Because it'd be my initiative, so that's why you put it in the superintendent's budget. I mean, I'm just being quite honest, because I just wanted the latitude to really move forward. And of course, curriculum has several different things that they're working on, and these are things that I'll kind of speed. So to answer your question, Mr. Mayor, it didn't look to me other than the fact that
But the expenditure really should be in the department in which the expenditure will be incurred, related to whatever the expenditure is.
yeah, but what I want to say is, my initiatives could be a host of different things. So in other words, I mean, they may be a curriculum or a program initiative.
No, I mean, what you spend the money on that, whatever that initiative is, then transfer the expenditure to whatever department goes to, instead of it being housed under the superintendent, appearing that administrative cost is higher than what it is.
When you say administrative costs, so you kind of explain.
Because it's under administration, if you're doing something and it's more instructional, like the nursing program at the Career Center, or even if it's at high school, still considered in that particular category. If you take the initiative and you house it under the superintendent, it's under administration, versus being out under that particular department as instruction, which really is more instruction.
And so with that, there's my point. I mean, some things that I may elect to pursue may relate to curriculum, may relate to programming, may relate to facilities, equipment, may relate to supplies. I mean, I just want to have some latitude as things arise.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Just, Kevin, you know what I'm talking about, right?
I understand what you're talking about. I think what we discussed is that just so we would have the flexibility, it could be instructional, but then it may be something related to, if it's media, that would be another function. So to keep it all in one place, that's what he was saying. That's why it's all under.
The only thing I'm asking is, once he spent the money, so it doesn't inflate the administrative costs, then the expenditure can go out to whatever department it goes to.
That's reasonable.
Right,
Yeah.
that's the intent. service, of course, we have to do one transfer for, any excess benefits, certain benefits costs that, we can only charge a minimum amount of benefits by State Department guidelines to food service. So some of that has to be transferred to the general fund. Then also, if we're gonna lose money in food service, then any excess of the expenditures over the revenues would also be a transfer to the general fund. And so those are the two components that make up that transfer, I say to the general fund, but it'd be a cost in essence to the general fund.
So that's above and beyond the indirect costs?
Correct, and there wouldn't be an indirect cost if there's a loss in the food service fund, because we can't charge it by regulations.
But you still do the calculation?
We can, there's no need to even do the calculation. In talking to the personnel at the State Department, if you lose money in a food service fund, then you cannot charge any indirect costs.
No, I understand you would charge it just so that you can have the full cost of what it costs to run the
Okay, I understand, yes, we can still do the calculation.
That answer your question, Mr. Daniel?
Scary, but yeah.
Okay, anyone else? We have a motion and a second to approve the budget for fiscal year 13-14 in the amount of $34,358,564. All those in favor signify by the raising of the right hand. Opposed? Abstention? 501, Ms. Dotson? Item 4.
Item number 4 in the board package, we have the finance report for the month of May 2013. In summary, the revenues for the month of May, year-to-date, about $31.5 million, and the expenditures about $27 million. We still have to include some of the salaries for our 9-month employees throughout the summer in that amount, so the expenditures will be higher through the end of the year. We have in the report just a summary of our revenues and expenditures, and we also have 2 reports of the expenditures in detail, one by Object Group, which is the second or the third report, and the third report is our expenditures by location, which is listed in detail as well for your review.
Thank you. Any questions?
So we're still on pace to be able to contribute to the fund balance?
Yes, I think we may contribute about $400,000. Yes.
Actually, I had to digress, but, the money for Midford, was it in this budget? Will we be sending them another $1.8 or $2 million next year?
Right now, what we're sending, we sent 1.8, I think that was last year, but that was for a 3-year period. So what we sent this year was about $560,000, maybe $550,000 in that neighborhood. And we do have that in the budget for next year until that issue is resolved.
So, Madam Chair, Mr. Green, is there any reduction based on the number of students, or is it the same number of students? Or and you may not know, because I don't think you really got into that, but it was supposed to be a per student cost.
It is.
So are we keeping up with the number of students that should be in Fairfield that are crossing the lines going over there?
Well, what happens, Ms. McDaniel, is Chester County sends a list of students that live in Fairfield County who they are serving. We cross-check that based on the addresses of students that they send us. Of course, we aren't necessarily going over there counting noses, so to a certain extent, we have to go on the documentation that they provide us. So they are providing documentation on a per student basis. The way we come up with that figure that Kevin just referenced is by a calculation per student. And they have to identify every student that is being served in Chester County. And Ms. Bush is the one who verifies that. So when they send us a student and they send us
special legislation, that local legislation, remember?
For others, Ms. McDaniel, we
The
have,
others we
we have
do.
been
That one
approving,
we've
but
never
not, and I can say for this year, it didn't include the Chester.
We approve those students.
I thought we did also.
Uh-huh.
I thought we did also, where it came to, I don't even, I'm not big enough. That all students from Chester that we, received some type of document asking be released to, Chester, County, all students from Fayetteville County. At least we, I think we did it last year.
Well, probably what I would say that, Ms. Miller, and I'm not sure whether we've done it in the past or not. I mean, since there's already been a ruling, I guess I would not see the purpose of the board approving it, because if the board.
It's state law.
Right, it's law.
It's in the state law.
Yeah, no, so if the board says that, the board says I don't approve. The ruling of it is already that we have to fund students that are served there. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't really see what, if the board just is in a position to approve or not approve. Because it's already been ruled.
I think that law trumps.
And maybe will. The other thing is that, and I heard what you said, that, for as, someone going over there, and I ain't saying that go there every day, but we need to be thorough, pretty thorough, that they're not staying in Chester County and giving an address in Fayetteville County. Now, I wish you would look into that and make, maybe Ms. Bush or whoever, to look into that. Appreciate that, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Move on to item 5.
Item 5 in the board package, you have a request that the superintendent is recommending a board approval of a tax anticipation note not to exceed $6.15 million. And the administration is requesting an approval of this tax anticipation note resolution so that the district will have the ability to meet some of its cash flow needs until the majority of property tax revenues come in January 2014. What happens is that since we receive the majority of our revenue when the property taxes come in January, there's typically a shortfall from somewhere between July and January of cash. Once we receive the property taxes in January, then we pay back the tax anticipation note, which is just a short-term borrowing so that we can pay our bills throughout the year, because our bills are fairly steady in terms of the cash we have to spend out, but our revenues are not steady in that the majority of our tax revenues come in January. This is something we've done in the past few years, and this program is being sponsored through the SCAGO, which is an organization, nonprofit of coalition of school districts within South Carolina. The program, by doing this through SCAGO, it enables us to have a lower cost of borrowing than we would have if we went out and did this solely by ourselves. So this is being submitted for board approval, and the recommendation is that the board approve the tax anticipation note not to exceed $6.15 million.
You're saying we borrowed.
Okay, let's get a motion.
I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you, sir. Second, Ms. Hartman. Okay, now open it for discussion or questions.
So you're saying that we're, on this note, that this is what the note is normally, is 6 point?
No, ma'am. This is just a resolution saying that the maximum amount that would be authorized would be $6.15 million. We would have to monitor how much we would have to borrow between roughly October and January, and we only request the amount of cash that we feel we need to meet our cash flow needs. So we're not saying that we would borrow $6.15 million, it's just that it's an approval to let us borrow up to that amount based on the analysis of how much we may be short between October and January.
How much did we say borrow last year, as far as what we were short?
Last year's borrowing,
Any other questions or discussion?
I know you don't know what it is because it's all that in the material, but any ballpark on what the interest rate on this is going to be?
If I had to ballpark, I think in the past, it's been 1% or lower, and it's extremely low, just due to interest rates themselves, and the fact that we're doing a group borrowing makes it even lower.
Question? Mr. Gagnon? Okay, excellent. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second to approve the tax anticipation note not to exceed $6.15 million. All those in favor signify by raising of the right hand. None opposed, 6-0 Stotsy. Thank you. Number 6.
Item number 6, the superintendent's requesting approval of funding flexibility. And the funding flexibility is an allowable transfer by the South Carolina legislature, which allows school districts to transfer some of their state special revenue funds to other state special revenue funds or to the general fund. And the superintendent's recommendation is the approval of the FY 12-13 funding flexibility request.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion, Ms. Hartman. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Miller, thank you. Discussion?
How much is this, how much money is it?
The amount that we're transferring is approximately $18,000.
Any other question?
Have we paid the bill for, starting the career center?
Started at the result,
Yes, sir.
what we've done so far in terms of.
Well, like, for example, we had the bill for, we initially had, what, 10,500 for
The technical work,
starting, right? Has that been paid yet?
I'm sure we have. Yeah, yes.
Okay, when's the next bill due on that?
Well, on the geotechnical work, or you mean this period?
Well, do we have a set scheduling time period that we have to pay so much?
Well, you know, we've not received a schedule as of yet, Ms. Hartman, from the architects as it relates to the building construction schedule. I think we ran into a few issues, and the reason I'm telling you that is because sometimes you have some adjustments. After the first bit of geotechnical work, we ran into some issues where we were going to have to do some follow-up, and I'm gonna talk about that a little bit later on. I'm gonna get into that, but there were one or two issues we solved, and there was a couple of issues with retaining wall. So there's some other things that we have to do. So in terms of giving you a specific timeline on what is the next step, we're still doing some geotechnical work because of what we uncovered during the last inspection.
Can we put funds like this into an account to go toward that career center?
Well,
Not these funds to which we're referring. These funds really have to be used they have to be transferred primarily to other state special revenue funds, and those funds have to be used based on how we're transferring. So if we have a special revenue fund that's to be used just for gifted and talented, and we're transferring the money to that particular grant, then it still has to be used for gifted and talented.
Okay, so this has to go to gifted and talented, what you're saying?
Well, we're actually transferring all of our funds, the entire $18,000 to its students at risk. Those funds are for remediation, can be used some for summer school and alternative school programs.
In other words, those funds are designated when they
Right.
come, so they have to be
Areas.
transferred to the designated areas, right?
Okay.
Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the superintendent's recommendation for the fiscal year 12-13 funding flexibility request, signify by raising of the right hand.
Okay.
Got 6-0, Ms. Dotson? I'm sorry.
I was gonna ask one more question.
Okay, we'll ask it after the next. Let's move on to number 7.
Okay.
In your board packets, we have a request for Barnwell funding flexibility transfer. The superintendent's requesting approval of the funding flexibility for Barnwell funds per the attached documents. The Barnwell funds are funds that are allocated for specific instructional facilities projects, and these funds may be transferred to the general fund so that they can be used for instructional purposes. We have some funds that are about to expire by June 30th of 2013 if we do not use them or transfer them. And the reason we're not using them, we talked to the State Department, we could have used these funds for our, for the Career Center. However, we would have had to have had a contract for the construction of the Career Center. So in order not to lose the funds, we're requesting that we be allowed to transfer them to the general fund where they can be just used for instructional purposes.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we, accept the superintendent's recommendation.
How much funds
Thank
are
you,
we talking about
thank you,
here?
Mr. Miller. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fritz.
How much funds are we talking about here?
We are talking about, $33,700.
$33,000.
$743 to be exact.
And which was the same question I was supposed to bring up before was, you're saying it has to be for under instructions. Now, can that, even though we have a contract now, can that go towards that or not?
We haven't actually signed the contract, I guess, for the construction, the building construction part.
Can we put it into still these funds and then put it into that or not?
No, ma'am.
Once it's done? Okay. Another question is can we put it into the funds and money that we currently have in those funds, and we have extra funds to use, not these funds, but what we had already there? You follow me?
I wouldn't advise that just because in my conversations with the State Department, one of the things that they look for is to make sure the districts aren't transferring these funds to the general fund and then trying to transfer a similar amount to building funds. In essence, you're trying to get around, they view that as getting around the actual intent of the use of the funds.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
it seemed like I recall us having a conversation about this Bonneville money last year. And we asked about Bonneville money being used towards the architect fees. And so I'm confused now that we're now being told that we're about to lose money. And I thought Bonneville money, when it was first distributed to the districts, it was for building purposes.
It is, and that money does phase out year by year according to how the money was allocated. And I can't remember the number of years in which it phases out, but there is some money that, according to when we received it, in our allocation does phase out.
So why was this not requested last year? So we would be at this point when we had the conversation last year about Bonneville money.
We actually used some Barnwell money, I think it was last year, for something, a project at Kelly Miller. But I guess one of the obstacles with this is that they have to be used for instructional type projects. So there are limitations on how we can use that. So unless we had any instructional construction projects, then we wouldn't be able to use the funds. And that's what we find ourselves in this year. So instead of losing them, that's why we're just requesting for the transfer.
Madam Chair, can we get a copy of the usage that goes with this? Because I distinctly remember us talking about using this money for architect fees. And with the cost of the Career Center and the economic situation, you know, we've approved the budget of what the superintendent requested. So money that we can use to offset the Career Center and minimize the taxes, because unless I'm mistaken, VC summer money has been pushed back. So I'm just taken aback that we had this conversation and what we requested, or what I recall we requested. So
Barnwell funding flexibility, let's stay there, then we can, and maybe have other discussions about the Career Center instructional needs. Any other questions or discussions about Barnwell funding flexibility,
Were we told specifically what it was gonna be used for?
No, ma'am,
instructional purposes?
instructional purposes, so we'll have some latitude in terms of how this funds.
Okay, now that's two pots of play money we requested.
It's not necessarily my money.
We need to know what the money is spent on, and, it would be nice if there was a budget and projections of what it's gonna be spent on. Because we just throwing it in the general fund, and the budget for next year's already been approved, and this year is about done.
Well, it'll give us some flexibility, Mr. McDaniel, to do some creative things, some innovative things. And I think having that money at our disposal gives us the opportunity to maybe pursue some things we otherwise would not.
So we'll be told specifically what you spending this money on.
Not about this specific money, now, I'm not saying I'm gonna tell you about this specific money, but.
Then why would you tell us what you spending on?
Because if it goes to the general fund, it's going to the general fund,
Right.
it's going to the general fund. I mean, so it may be, I may not spend it at all, it may go to the fund balance.
So the state is allowing us to just take the money and just carte blanche, just put it into, because it's basically gonna be going to the fund balance. So that's what they're allowing us to do with the money.
They allow us to transfer it to the general fund, and as long as we're saying we're gonna use it for instructional purposes, then the transfer is allowed.
So how are we gonna track it and make sure we use it for instructional purposes?
They did request a specific tracking measure, I guess they rely on the districts to, once you say you're gonna spend it for instructional purposes, then that's what you're gonna do. And instructional purposes could be teacher salaries, could be teacher benefits.
And my only question was, how are we gonna make sure that's what we do?
Trust. I think the state just trusts the superintendent of the district. I just ask the board to trust our spending on instructional purposes.
And I trust you, but I just wanna verify.
Well,
Is there
Okay,
any type of new, something that's gonna go into the Career Center eventually, the new Career Center, that we can put into the Career Center to help them now, and just transfer it? You
Okay,
follow what I'm
let's go
saying?
back to
That
the
could be used-
Barnwell flexibility funding,
But that's,
Okay.
could be used for that. is what
funding
I'm trying to say.
flexibility. We're gonna vote on this one. We have a motion and a second, and we've gone all the way around it and about to beat it up. So, signify by raising your right hand if you are, in approval or in, I'm so confused right this minute. Supported, thank you, of the superintendent's recommendation, the Barnwell funding flexibility to be used for instructional purposes, signify by raising your right hand. We've got 3 opposed, 1 abstention, 2. 3-1-2, Ms. Dodson. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I just want the record to reflect that my vote is because this money is supposed to be for instructional purposes, and we have nothing to verify or confirm that that's what it's used for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
Madam Chair, members of the board, in the package, you have 2 certified resignations. It's my recommendation that the board approve the certified recommendations as stated in the board package.
Madam Chair?
Motion, Mr. Miller?
Yes, so moved.
Second, Mr. Fred. Any discussion, questions?
Madam Chair. So these positions, what's the status of,
Pardon me?
what's the status of these positions?
I'm not sure, Ms. McDaniel, they have resigned. I'm not sure whether we've filled those positions or not, but if we haven't, we are seeking to fill.
These people had contracts, signed contracts?
Yes.
So we let them out before we find a suitable replacement, or just,
At this stage, Ms. McDaniel, this early in the year, we won't have any problem filling those positions. Now, had someone come, second week of August, there'd be another story. I mean, if someone resigns in June, I don't think it's a good decision to try to hold someone to a contract at a certain stage. I said, if you come to us selling you August, that's another story. So the contract does serve your purpose. If you come to us in June, saying that you want to pursue some other opportunity, that gives us plenty of time to find a state replacement. If you come to us, selling you August, and you want to pursue other opportunity.
So is that language anywhere in the contract, or is that what we saying as a board, that when teachers sign contracts, then we're gonna just let them leave unless it's in August?
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that.
Yeah, but the board vote on, that's why I'm asking the question of the board.
Okay. But that's why I make the recommendation, and the board can accept my recommendation or not.
Madam Chair, I do understand what Mr. McDaniel is saying. I would like to pull back my motion and make it state that with a super replacement. If I get a second, because that is, even though it's not, it's just a way to be all the way across the board that declaring that we need a suitable replacement before we let anybody go.
If I make a point of order, we already got a motion, a second,
Right.
before, I think we got to vote on that.
We've got to vote on it again.
Okay, I can't pull it back.
No,
All right,
He
got
can
it.
amend the motion that he already has on the floor to add that to the motion that he
But
already
it's
has.
been seconded.
but it's been seconded, so.
Right, and he can still put the motion there until it gets accepted, then you vote on the amendment first.
It's just voted down, so let's vote.
No. Mr. Miller, are you amending your motion?
Well, whether I'm amended or not, I'm not gonna vote for it, because I do wanna put that in.
Right, and you don't have to vote for it, but the motion has been made and seconded, so we'll vote for it, and then we can vote it down and then start
The reason I'm asking
over.
him is because if he's amended the motion, I'm gonna second it, and we'll vote on his amendment first, and then vote on the rest of the motion. So if you're not, then I'm good, but I'm just asking.
I think we can.
Yeah, let's vote on it just to be sure. Let's just go through the
Well, I
order
will call that
correctly.
point of order, but I would encourage y'all to read parliamentary procedures, because you can't amend the motion that's already on the floor if we have not voted.
It's not seconded.
Second. Those in favor of the motion on the floor to accept the superintendent's recommendation, please signify by raising his right hand. Opposition? Abstention?
Opposition, no, right?
No.
Okay.
Okay, abstention?
I'm against it.
Well, let's vote. Which one is it? All those in favor, raise, signify by raising your right
You need
hand.
to repeat the motion
I-
to make sure that it's clear.
I did. Those in favor of the superintendent's recommendation to approve the two certified resignations, signify by raising the right hand. 2, opposed. 3, 4. Okay. Motion did not carry. Is there a different motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that, say that, we, accepted the superintendent, his recommendation, providing they, have a suitable replacement, providing they get a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Miller, Ms. McDaniel. The recommendation has been made that the superintendent's request be approved, provided that a suitable replacement will be found for those certified recommendations. Resignations. All those in favor?
You would need a replacement for
Yes.
those.
All those in favor signify by raising of the right hand. Opposition? 5-1, Ms. Dawson.
Next, you have the, certified recommendations. I think they are. The 25 certified recommendations. I recommend that the board approve all of the recommendations as outlined.
So move, Madam Chair.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Fritz, is there any discussion or any questions?
Can someone tell me what a, guidance director is?
The person who manages the guidance department, that is a guidance counselor who counselor has a responsibility, but in addition to the counselor's responsibility, he manages or she manages the entire guidance department.
Let me ask my question again, so make sure. The guidance counselor will have a student load. The director will also have a student load as well as the management of the guidance department responsibilities.
That's traditionally how it works, Mr. Gann.
But how is this gonna work? I
I
just
don't
need to know
know.
before I
I
vote.
mean, I can tell you that because the administration and the guidance department will have to sit down and talk about how they want to divvy out responsibilities. So I'm not gonna tell you exactly what it's going to be because that's up to the administration and guidance.
We didn't know that before we advertised for the position.
We don't know what.
Whether or not this person was gonna have a student load, or whether the person was just gonna have supervision over the guidance department.
It was advertised as a guidance director. The person who's the guidance director, I'm quite sure is prepared to have a student load if that is required.
I rest my chair.
You know, we've got what? Do we have 4 guidance counselors over there now? Or do you know?
We have 3 guidance counselors.
3 guidance.
Yeah.
We had 1 when I was in school. We had twice as many students. A lot of guidance counselors.
A lot of law has changed since then and dictates the numbers per student.
I don't think nothing will support that, but that many, I
No,
know the seniors.
but
are-
there have been a lot of laws that have,
They
that have
will
added to the
Well,
restrictions
they're
on that.
more
We have a
out-
motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor of the superintendent's recommendation for the certified personnel, please signify by raising your right hand. Opposition? Abstention? 501, Ms. Dawson?
Finally, Madam Chair, members of the board, you have one administrative recommendation. The recommendation is for Dr. Letitia Nindle. That's it, Letitia Nindle. Letitia Tyndall. Dr. Letitia Tyndall, to replace Dr. Bryant at Gowanus Academy. Dr. Tyndall has worked in several capacities in Fairfield County. She has been assistant principal. I think she's been a literacy coordinator at the district level. She currently works as a literacy coach at Gowanus Academy, and she is the recommendation for the new director of GOA.
Is she here today? Tonight?
Motion.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Frick. Mr. Miller? Any questions or discussion? Motion and second have been made to accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the administrative recommendation for the GOA. All those in favor signify by raising of the right hand. 5-0, Ms. Dawson.
Madam Chair, I would like to commend the superintendent for promoting someone we already have in the district.
Well, thank you, Ms. McDaniel.
You're so welcome.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
5-0, was the vote? I'm sorry, 6-0? Okay, personnel.
I think that's last one, isn't it? Oh, no, well, personnel review, that's, I think we.
I'll do that one. The superintendent, on personnel matter number 4, under human resources, personnel matter grievance hearing request number 1, I think that's incorrect. Superintendent recommends that we do not hear that personnel grievance.
Make a motion that we do not hear that grievance.
Thank you, Mr. Frick.
I second.
Mr. Miller. Any discussion on that?
Madam Chair, I just once again state my concern that the superintendent brings recommendations to the board instead of bringing the information, so the board can read the information and make a decision as to whether or not they want to hear it, which is in conflict with the policy.
The information.
We don't need to discuss it, because we didn't discuss it at
Well, I
some
want to set
meeting.
the record straight, Mr. Daniels,
But
that
you can
information
make
was
your
put in
comment
more several days ago.
That's not my concern. My concern is you making a recommendation. But we both made our statements for the record, Madam Chair. We can
All right,
move
let's move forward with the voting. The recommendation has been made to not hear the grievance on request number 1. Those in favor of not hearing the grievance, raise your right hand. Opposed? Okay, 5-1. Ms. Dotson, thank you. We have personnel matter number 2, grievance hearing. The superintendent recommends that we hear the grievance for personnel grievance number 2.
Madam Chair, before you take a motion on that, I don't think we have a choice in here, Mr. So do we have to vote on it?
Let's do, since there was some,
Or can we state for the record that we voted on it because of advice of council?
absolutely.
Then I move that we hear the personnel matter grievance based on the advice provided by council.
And I second that, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. McDaniel. Mr. Miller, any other discussion? Not that we could have any. Ms. Dotson, the motion has been made that the superintendent's recommendation and upon legal counsel that the board will hear the personnel grievance number 2. Those in favor of hearing the grievance number 2 signify by raising the right hand. Ms. McDaniel, you voted early?
I didn't.
Okay, that was 6-0, Ms. Dotson. Thank you. As far as updates and announcements, only one thing that I would like to talk about. Mr. Green was in attendance as well last night. The Chamber of Commerce, in conjunction with True Vista and some other entities, are working on getting internet access for the community out in Jenkinsville that surrounds McCrory-Liston School of Technology. And I think that's an admirable undertaking, and we'd like to thank them for that. I think that is working in conjunction with the school district and the goals that we're hoping to achieve as well. So I'd like to throw out that bit of knowledge, is also recognition for those entities there.
Madam Chair, what exactly are they like grants, or do they have some funding coming in?
You know, I didn't get the details. It sounded like they were going to be funding it themselves possibly, or you know, just working with True Vista at certain rates to get, you know, some infrastructure put in so that the internet will be available to those in that area. And I accepted it as a kind of as a follow-up to the school district having set that school as a school for technology. And so I think they've accepted the lead and said, you know, you're right. If this is going to be a school for technology, then we need to make sure that we have access in the area for those folks when they are away from schools. I think that's an admirable initiative.
Okay, and another reason I mentioned it, I think, I'm not sure where we were, we talked to Naveen about them
Yes.
Yeah.
allowing E-rate money.
Yeah.
Can we send a follow-up letter to him to see if there's been any push towards them allowing that money to be used to enhance internet access?
Maybe Mr. Robinson, that could fall under technology, maybe Ms. Barfield or somebody could follow up on that way?
This Garfield with that.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. That'd be
We
great.
talked about putting it on the buses, maybe something like that.
Right.
I want to ask also, apparently, we're having, I don't know whether this school is doing it or the county's doing it, the lunches and the breakfast, and I think at high school, junior high, and at the Fairfield, is that correct?
And then what lunch are we talking about?
Lunches and breakfast for the summer,
Some,
for the low-income
Some people.
some,
Well, yeah, well, we do have summer school going on at the middle school and high school and elementary school. I think it is also available to people, or students who may come in as a function of the summer program also.
Why don't
But the
they
lunch
have-
is primarily being provided to students who attend summer school.
Why don't they have it like, I know they did last year, how they gave the school
generally have them housed, we, summer school program, we know you're going to have a certain amount of that. As opposed to some people, where there's traffic that may come in.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I went over to the high school last week, and I did see them serving lunch, and I found out that it was the arts program. It was the arts program that they were working with, because they had them small, middle, and big. So I think it was the arts program that furnished that. At least that's my understanding, that what I have.
This was what I had read in the newspaper, and they asked for other areas, that they, had some areas that they could go to. And that's what I read.
Actually, I have one quick question. I thought you said we had some school that all, you don't have it in our school? Yeah, I said, oh, she was. Yeah.
No, ma'am.
All to the elementary school.
Also wanted.
Did I hear a motion to adjourn? Yeah,
I
I'll
wanted to
say.
also comment
We'll get there.
about Mr. Green, I'm assuming it's your doing.
Thank you.
That the children, all the programs that I have gone to, for the end of the school year, that the kids have been, dressed great. You know, I've been real pleased, dressed for success, you might say.
But they're not wearing bow ties.
They had ties. They had ties. Red shirts.
A lot of bow ties.
Girls looked appropriate also, so I was real pleased to see that. I assume that's coming from you.
No, that is.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins.
No.
We had the motion, I think, Mr. Miller and Ms. Harrison's second on that to adjourn. Hearing no objections, we will adjourn until July. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Ms. Malloy. Ms. Malloy. Thank you. I wasn't up here when you gave it. Come here a minute if you don't mind, please.
I guess I'll have Mr. Jacobs call, check your schedule. Yeah, it's free. But Monday is. But we may be able to get together like that. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Maybe late Monday. Yeah, that gives me time to get in.
So well. I got S-O-W-E-L. Okay, I know some so well.
You gotta know for you.
here.
Oh, okay.
You're-
All right. Okay.
So that's written up
You got some? You gonna get this one signed for me? You gonna get this? I don't remember the date. If they, I told him that was probably a good thing.
Yeah, I think they would have told us.
The intergovernmental meeting, what did that?
He has a meeting.
Uh-huh, and then the day before.
You know, the URL name doesn't even match what it is, you can't even Google it. So I decided that they would to change.
How much the girl do?
So anyway, that was one of the big ones today.
We need to, do I need to help?
So I said, Christina wants it, her wife, you know, they should have looked at everything for
Oh, Jesus!
You,
What's her phone number? Oh, you know, give her
which house?
my phone number till I say something. I need to give her something for graduation. I give she a date.
What's up?
So tell her. And I just kind of fill it up and let her know I told her.
What's going on, Dr. I'm working on it, man. Somebody got to do it, man. Yeah, somebody got to do it, man. Yeah. They go there, they're going, bro. I might get you. They make it every quarter, man.
Ours got bigger than we meant to. I'll make sure I get one of those. And I'll.
That's what I'm telling you, man. I'm trying to stop the trend around here.
Code said yes.
I told you, man. That's right. You know, if I didn't be trying to tell my position now, I'm telling you.
They're trying to be man here.
I'm trying to
You trying to do the.
Yeah, I do.
Head.
That's my job, man. We all know that's my job.